Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 2 of Dissonant Dialogues. I'm Emily, and I'm here with my co-host Claire. Claire, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing very well. Yeah, we're in a new era of life that we'll kind of discuss in today's happy hour episode. But first things first, if you were a listener of season 1, you probably noticed that our theme song has changed. So a huge thanks to Scott Bass, who created our first one, but also like morphed it into this sort of remix for our season 2. So it's still like our regular theme, but it has a really cool like mix sound to it. So
Yeah,
we really enjoy it.
always evolving, representing our progression. So I thought it was fun to kind of mix it up for season two.
Yes, for sure. So Dissonant Dialogues premiered February 3rd of 2024, and we are currently filming this in September of 2024. So it's been what about like 6 months since we started this podcast, and season 2 will be released in October, starting in October. So we wanted to do a little happy hour episode talking about what we've been doing and working on since February and outside the start of the podcast, February through September, and kind of just what we're up to, what's happened in our lives, and any projects and stuff we're working on, plans for the future, all the things. So this is our exciting happy hour episode. I just have water.
I have a very special gift from Emily, which is our Dissonant Dialogues customized mug that she surprised me with.
Yes, that's our first bit of Dissonant Dialogues merch. It's very exciting.
Adorable ladies.
Yeah, there is some merch for me as well that is Dissonant Dialogues related, but not a mug. Unfortunately, it did not arrive here today, but hopefully it will be here for one of our season 2 Dissonant Dialogues episodes. Otherwise, you'll see me wearing it on like our socials and stuff. One of the biggest things for me is that I sort of graduated. I never really know how to explain this to people because it's so like it's confusing, but it's not. I am
Yeah.
working on 2 bachelor's degrees at the same time, and I'm doing it within 4.5 years. Is that the
Yes.
right word? Yeah. In 4.5 years. Initially, it was a 5-year plan, but I got it shortened down to 4.5. And I technically have met all of the requirements of my violin performance degree. I have done all of those things. All I have left is student teaching to finish up the music education degree, which is very, very important. But all my classes are done. So technically, my violin performance degree is done. I did do that. So that's very exciting. I never know how to say like, well, it depends who I'm talking to. If I'm like, well, yeah, I graduated with this degree, I'm like, but I'm not like graduated yet because I still have not gotten my diploma, could not be a part of a ceremony. Like it's kind of confusing, but that's where I'm at when it comes to school stuff. I'm going to kind of go in chronological order. I think Claire is as well. So since the start of the podcast, I also had a documentary filmed about me for the first time. It's kind of a shortened documentary, but it was filmed for Northwestern on like a documentary like thing that they were doing. And it's basically about me, my experience with music, and leading into my senior recital, how my perspective on music has changed and what I plan to do with music in the future. And as I was working towards my senior recital. So if you have any like a junior recital or a senior recital or any performances coming up in the future, that documentary helps kind of show my perspective, like leading into the senior recital and what things are like in conservatory at the time. That link to the documentary is going to be in our description below. So you can also take a listen to that. It's a pretty short documentary.
It's beautifully filmed.
Yeah, it was really nice getting the chance to work with like professional cameras and microphones, getting like the microphone, like the way they have to like clip it and like attach it. It's so weird. They put it like under your clothes and then
Yeah.
it like comes up here. Like I didn't know how any of that professional stuff worked. So it came out really nicely. And I have it pinned to like, I think it's my Instagram and maybe my TikTok too.
Yeah.
So you can also see it there, but we will put the link below. A very sweet, exciting piece of news is that I officially documented and own an emotional support animal. His name is Teddy. I literally just woke him up. So right now he has bedding like all over him. He's like not camera ready at all, but he's so sweet. He's a long-haired teddy bear hamster. Um, I did get him when I was still on school grounds. So this was like the largest and fluffiest support animal I could actually have. I couldn't have like a cat or a dog or anything. So this was like the best I could get. And he's so fluffy. I actually just gave him a little bit of a trim so you can tell he's not like, you do have to trim long haired hamsters for people that don't know. You know, as we talked about in the season finale of season 1, I think I did mention that I have been diagnosed with PTSD.
Right.
And having an emotional support animal, it is calming and it's nice to spend time with him, but also just having that responsibility of taking care of like another animal's life is really, really helpful. And nice to be able to do. So it was nice too, while I was still surviving on the horrific campus that I was on and with all the harassment I was facing, that I had like my little teddy buddy there with me. I wasn't totally alone. So you're small, but you mean a lot. And he just wants to go back to sleep. He does not care. He wants nothing to do with this.
For people who don't know, like what do you feel like the benefits of an emotional support animal are? Like what makes it different than just having a normal pet?
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. For me, the responsibility part was very helpful. So while I'm like, big thing for me was nightmares. So like waking up trying to get out of bed after having like really distressing nightmares was really, really hard for me for some time. But I knew Teddy was right there and he needed to be fed. He needed his like water changed and all that. So that helps me like get out of bed. And then once I'm doing that and I'm taking care of him, I'm up and out of bed and my brain is starting to think about other things. So that was probably the largest thing that was the most helpful, because I would say that was like, was and is still happening, the most extreme part of my PTSD. But I think even just having like something there with you, not someone, something there with you, especially if you live alone, and after going through something like sexual assault, like grooming, something where like trust is just broken, and that is due to grooming, sexual assault, and also harassment, all of those factors, it's really hard to connect with people. So during that time when I was really struggling, I had nobody to connect with, but also even if people were there, it probably would have still been challenging. I had Teddy there with me. And honestly, I was going to get him kind of regardless. I didn't get him intentionally to have an emotional support animal documented. I had to have him documented as emotional support. So I would have gotten him for emotional support regardless, but this was like officially official, like an emotional support animal, because I was still living on campus. Because the process was very annoying. You know what? I'm not there anymore. I can say this. I got him before he was documented, because the process to get him documented, oh my gosh, it was so difficult. You have to go through all these different people and go through all these forms and have my therapist. It was going to cost $75 to get my psychiatrist who diagnosed me with PTSD to like write a letter to the school, and then they have to go through the school and the building, this whole thing. But luckily I got my therapist to do it for no charge. But it was still a whole process. I'm going through all these people, and I already had him at that point. I just hid the fact that I had him. I didn't post about him anywhere. No. But you know, that was necessary for survival. So
yeah, I think part of the reason it probably took longer is because I think they're more streamlined at the beginning of semesters, when people are like, in the beginning of the years when people are registering those. So I think the fact that it was like in March was like a little bit
too. Also, like the school I'm talking about is so disorganized. It's like no matter when, it would have taken a little bit.
Yeah. Starting shortly into the beginning of the year, biggest news just personally was that shortly before we started our podcast, my sister-in-law, my husband's older sister, announced her second pregnancy. We had a niece. We still have her. She hasn't gone anywhere. And so in July, our nephew was born. So that's been kind of the theme of the last 6 months, has been like getting really excited that he's on the way. Joe and I don't plan on having kids, my health and money being big reasons for that. So we love being aunt and uncle, although our niece has started calling us both uncle or unk. She says, "Where's Unc Joe? Where's Unc Claire?" So I've become uncle now, I guess. And who am I to argue with a child? So that's been
probably a funny nickname and like story to have when you're older, or when she's older, you know.
I love it. And she's apparently doing really well with him. So yeah, we've been very excited. We still haven't met him, mostly because my sister-in-law wants us to wait until he gets his first round of vaccine. So hopefully in the next few weeks, like right when we're premiering the first episode, I should be able to meet him. So that'll be special. Honestly, the last year, not just the last 6 months, has been that I have been really going headfirst with new doctors and new specialists and trying to sort of get a grip on my health. I don't know what's out there and what's available, and everybody's experience is different when it comes to chronic illness and disability. But I've been working with a lot of new neurologists and occupational therapists and trying to sort of see what I can do to take ownership of my health, because I feel like I haven't really made any advancements in my career in the last 4 years. One has been dealing with burnout and sort of the innate trauma of music school, which is why we're doing this podcast. it's also a good exposure therapy to kind of get back into the mindset of being like, okay, I am a musician. I'm still a musician. There's a lot of anxiety when I think about like where to start up my career again, because even just in the process of how I got to know Emily, a lot of trust with institutions and people, and not all of them. Like there are still people I love and adore, but it's nothing like what Emily goes through. But there's still like a bit of a trauma reaction in the sort of guilt by association, where when I think about going back and reaching out to the contacts that I have, even the ones who are incredible and wonderful and very sweet, it's nerve-wracking after you find out that like it shakes you, which, you know, if you've seen Emily's victim impact statement, that was something that you brought up is in our bonus episode, which was, as we're filming, just came out a couple days ago. Obviously nothing compares to what the actual victim has gone through, but it's weird when you're in the peripheral, when you know these people, when you have seen how people responded. And so trying to sort of not only be supportive to Emily, but like to also understand how I feel about all of that and how that affects my career going forward, and becoming disenfranchised with a very toxic industry, but still wanting to be a part of it. Well, you know, that's a weird place to be emotionally.
It's even hard for me. I've noticed like being around people who have been around the man that abused me. And it sounds like even people that have been extremely supportive to me, just knowing that they were also in the same room with him at a period of time
Yeah.
can bother me sometimes. And it's like, well, I was gonna say like you'd think that I'd be more disturbed by myself and my own body for what he did to me. And yes, I am very much so. But I think right now as I'm like going through my own, trying to work through it, but like dissociation of my own body and like
Yeah.
being aware of like this is the, well, I can't even say like this is my body and the body that it happened
Yeah.
to. But it, you know, I think like I'm so used to dissociating and living in it because I have no choice. That then when I do come across a person who's like I know has been in his office before, who's like spoke with him before, just some simple stuff like that, like
Yeah.
it can be very disturbing, let alone to go to that environment again, which God, I hope I never have to do. But
Yeah.
I'm sure it's that way for a lot of students who were shook by
Yeah.
that because a lot of people were.
Yeah, you do. You go back and replay every single interaction and wonder, like, what did I miss? And it feels very creepy. It's spooky, for lack of a better word. I'm also somebody who we've talked about has a PTSD diagnosis. Now, mine is not from my experience at music school, although I'm sure it accumulated some stuff on top of that, but from religious trauma. And I think I always joked about like, oh, I've got so much to work through in therapy with childhood. Like, when am I even going to get to the music school stuff? Like, when am I even going to work through that? But, you know, I am in therapy. We both are advocates for therapy and promote it and recommend it. And it's hard. It's hard work. It's hard to find someone you click with. It is hard to give somebody access to your life like that. I will also say, as someone with PTSD who has dealt with being dissociated from my body too, for a very long time, probably has not been in my body since childhood. I've been working with a somatic therapist and doing more body work, which is extremely triggering, but it definitely pushed me past where just talk therapy was getting me. It was time to do something more, going hand in hand with my occupational therapy, which is like physical therapy, but more holistic. So it's encompassing, it's not just exercises, it's encompassing practical life skills and analyzing your vision, your brain movement, everything like that. I didn't realize how much treatment for mental and physical health, well, mental health is physical, and trying to repair and manage my disability symptoms brings up a lot with the PTSD, because when you have a chronic illness, you have a distrustful relationship to your own body. It can betray you at any time, whether you're just chronically ill or disabled. You know, as we both know, you don't trust your body. And then when you've been through any kind of SA or, you know, that kind of trauma, abuse, anything in that regard, or even just grown up in like purity culture like I did, you're even more dissociated. It's hard to take ownership and be like, okay, it's time to put on my big girl pants. I'm responsible for doing the healing now. There's no one else who's coming to do the work for me. It does kind of make me want to like change my name and hide under the covers sometimes, but that's been like a theme, is just trying to to take ownership of stuff and a lot of inner work, which is not as flashy or exciting to talk about on social media, but
A lot. Yeah,
it
it's a lot.
is. But, you know, one thing that kind of skipping forward that was really helpful is our conversation with our guest, Robin Hahn, was incredibly inspiring as a disabled person. And so as my mother-in-law's been saying, I pimped out Susan, which is what I call my walker, my rollator. And so I like painted her and put all these like blue floral decals so it would look porcelain. Just sort of remembering to take joy in realizing that this is part of my body and I should express myself through it as passionately as I do through every other aspect of my personal style and appearance. And that's been a helpful just like little visual cue to like see something and smile at like, oh, I did that, rather than pulling it out of the car every time I have to go somewhere and being like, cool, I'm 27 and I feel like a grandmother. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I remember you posting it on Instagram. I think it was sometime like late at night. And I remember like, and this is how it works. Like you post something late at night, I wake up from a nightmare and sometimes I go on my phone to like get my brain out of it and back to reality. And I like see some of your stuff and I'm like, oh, cool. And then it's like a peaceful going back to sleep. So my senior recital happened. That's crazy. That feels so long
Yes,
ago,
I
but
know.
it did happen. The cool thing that I did, and I honestly, I highly recommend others to do it, is that I vlogged leading up to my senior recital. And then I also did like a day of the senior recital vlog. Sometimes I just go back and watch them because it's like a therapeutic process that I'll kind of talk about. But the first one, like vlogging the process, what's it like to prepare a senior recital? So vlogging leading up into it was really cool because it was the process of getting my senior recital dress, hosting rehearsals for my quintet, having rehearsals with my accompanist, practicing doing run-throughs, and it was just kind of all the process, and you could see like how I was working with the nerves and trying to avoid burnout like for a really big performance. And it's senior recital, like you are responsible for performing the entire time, whether you are playing your primary instrument, your secondary instrument, conducting. It takes a lot of energy. So you have to learn so much for endurance to get through it. So it's a really cool vlog that will also link in the description if you're curious about what the process is like leading up to the senior recital and just all the stuff that you have to do, like the venue, sending out invites, like there's so much stuff to do. And all that stuff that I did is there. So it's nice to look back and see all the work that I did. But
Yeah.
also the day of the senior recital vlog, that was so, so nice to have. And I say a huge thanks to Claire and her husband Joe for helping out with that because I couldn't really be responsible for all the filming while I was, mentally preparing and also like on stage for the recital. So it was really nice to have Claire and Joe both like recording like little parts of me saying hi to people that came to support me. We also did like a video message thing. So when you got there for my recital, you could stop by Claire or Joe and you could just say, oh, good luck, Emily. Like, I'm so proud of you. Happy to be here. And like all these people, former teachers I had, like in elementary school, my high school chem teacher who like really helped change my life, my hand doctor who did like my surgeries on my hand, people like that came. So that just gives you a good idea of like, who do I invite to my senior recital? Invite people because there's people that would be very excited to come and see you like that. But also then having the compilation of those videos, like it is so nice to look back, especially when I was living on that campus dealing with harassment from students, faculty, and the institution itself, knowing that there are people outside of that really dark place that came to support me and that are there for me and do care about me was so therapeutic. And this gets kind of dark, but I can't remember if we talked about this in the podcast or not. If you listened to our season finale, you saw the way that the professor made like me feel crazy for the way that I gave hugs, for just like leaning forward and hugging a person. And he's like, no, your pelvises, you're supposed to be against each other. And say, you're so awkward, you're so weird, like you're not normal. You need to learn how to do this normally. And had gotten so much into my head. And I remember when I was watching back the videos that Claire took and I like, like compiled it all together into the vlog. And I was like, wait a second, not a single person press their pelvises together the way he said we're supposed to. And it was like, I kind of I mean, I was still so dissociated and still sometimes I am, which is where I'm able to just laugh about it. But I'm like, oh, okay. And I just had a moment where I'm like, all right, yeah. So this is just more proof as I'm like growing and get away from this insane man where I'm like, yeah, okay, he's nuts,
Yeah.
truly insane. Um, And it just, was more validating to everything that I'd went through to realize like, okay, yeah, that was another manipulation tactic of the grooming cycle. Okay.
Yeah, that was part of the reason that I wanted to film that, because obviously we were chasing down guests to get like a video message, but I also was trying to get some footage that was just like candid. And when everybody was coming up and hugging you in person and everything and handing you flowers, I was like, oh, that'll be cute, like to get like the candid, like the paparazzi perspective of that. And then I saw people hugging you, and because that story sticks with me because it's so weird. They all stick with me, but that one and the water bottle one just really make me, just something inside me primitive just growls about that. And I remember watching all of it and I was like, oh, I wonder if this will be helpful, because nobody just like bumps their pelvises together when they hug someone like who isn't like their intimate romantic partner. And even then you don't really do that in public. Like that's
I
really
think
weird.
saying this now really helps people understand how powerful grooming is, to
Mhm.
where he really got in my head about that. People like that get in your head about other stuff. So it was nice to have those memories of the people that came to support me, the people that wanted to leave a video message. I also brought chocolate chip cookies. I got a really great discount on them, and they were like big cookies. They were really
Yeah.
good. So like everybody got a cookie. So it was like giving back to the people that were giving their time to come see me. I dedicated the entire senior recital to the themes of rebirth and freedom and renewal. Every piece like had a specific dedication, so there was meaning in everything I was doing. I wasn't just showing off flashy techniques, but I was trying to make it more inviting and emotive. I played the Beethoven Spring Sonata, Flight of the Bumblebee, Mediterranean, Masks from Romeo and Juliet, the La Vie Dance by Clarence Cameron White, Sweet in the Old Style, and then I conducted Elegante by Susan H. Day and Fiddle Faddle for my own little quintet that I created. And then I had a surprise encore piece, which honestly, I think that is my favorite piece of them all, which
Yeah.
was on cello, the Romanian folk dances by Bartok. I did the very final movement. And it was just funny because my violin teachers, like, they knew I was going to play cello for my encore. That's as far as they knew. I got their permission, like, can I
Yeah.
do this? And they said yes. But they hadn't seen me play cello before. And one of them even told me after, they're like, wow, like you are like a cellist. Like you do play like a cellist, not a violinist playing a cello. I thought you were just gonna play like the swan or something on
Yeah.
cello, but you really play a good piece. And that's also in the first vlog of leading up to the senior recital. I talk about preparing that piece, going to the 7 a.m. cello studio class. So I did get like a cello professor's perspective and some performance experience before jumping on stage for my senior recital playing the cello. But I love looking back at that and like just seeing like the freedom. Like that's when I knew by the time I was in the encore, like I did it. I
Mhm.
survived these 4 years. I made it to my senior recital despite really awful things. And here I am just having fun playing my own encore on the cello. And the
Yeah.
cello was something that wasn't really touched as much by trauma.
Right.
That was kind of like its own thing. So I feel like it was just so much more at ease. And it's just such a beautiful thing. That's also on my YouTube, but in my senior recital video. We'll link the senior recital video itself in the description too.
It was an objectively good senior recital. Joe and I both really enjoyed it, and getting to see you in your element, in your moment, getting your flowers, both metaphorically and literally, because I love that picture of you where you have like 20 different bouquets in your
I
arms.
love that. They do that a lot in like figure skating stuff too. Like
Yeah.
Sasha was always with like all of her flowers. So I felt like I was truly Sasha then. So it was pretty cool. I did also want to say, because we're talking about all the joy and wonders of it, but we're Dissonant Dialogues. Let's be totally real. I actually cried backstage right before my senior recital. And the only one that knew was one of my violin teachers because I knew she was there. My other violin teacher was running late. So I texted, I didn't want to like be crying in front of like any of my other colleagues because like I don't know. I mean, they already knew like the darkness of what had happened to me on that campus, but I'm like, they can't see me cry. So I like texted my violin teacher. I'm like, can you come backstage? And she's like a very like motherly, like warm person. And she came back and all I remember is I just kind of like broke down crying. And I was like, I can't do this. It was after I'd seen like the number of people that came out to support me, that people I hadn't seen in like forever. And I was like, I can't, like all this stuff that's like happened to me. And now I have to go out and do this. And I'm just like, I just don't think I can do it. Like I can't do it. And she kind of just helped like get me in the mindset of like, you know what you have to do. You've worked on this. There's a reason like that you're going on stage and performing this piece. Like you've worked out why you're playing each note the way you're playing it. They're like, think about that. And I was able to calm myself down and then go out. But I do, I do remember I saw it in the recording. No, everyone says like, I don't see it, but there was one point where I was like shaking so bad and I was so nervous. I was getting dizzy and like, I went to like blink and I almost like had to like catch myself because I was wearing sort of heels. And so I was like, there was just a little like jolt in the very first piece. And so it was hard getting into it. And the nerves will always come down as you're doing the thing, but they're going to be the strongest at the very beginning. I always tell like my skating students on their first day on the ice, I'm like, it is only going to get better. The first day is the worst. Like it sucks. It's really bad. But when you come back out here a second time, it's going to feel easier. And the next time you're going to start learning new skills. It's that same concept.
That's true.
So yes, I'm very proud of my senior recital. I was happy to have a good senior recital because unfortunately the professor was at my junior recital and he made a lot of, we didn't get into that in the finale of season 1, but he made a lot of like comments and stuff about like my dress. And so it was nice to have like a very happy, supportive senior recital. And as far as I know, everybody that came really does genuinely care about me and have their best interest in me. So it was very nice.
I feel like these very sweet memories, and I'm like, and my house was getting repaired. That's been the other thing, is for the last year and a half, I had really severe water damage in my house, and my building is not being particularly reasonable about that. So I've been working with my doctors to see what long-term effects living with mold for that long has done to me. That's been super fun, is contractors and dust everywhere. And anyone who knows, like I make doll houses. That's been my passion project since lockdown. That was what got me through quarantine. So that's the room that has the water damage is my craft room most of the time. So now I don't have anywhere to work, and that's sad because I need my messes contained. Those are my little therapy projects, getting in touch with my inner child and getting to express myself. This is before we started our podcast, but a year ago now, I got invited by a local shop that also does like some local art displays. They wanted to hire local miniature artists. Everyone would get one room in their dollhouse for display and have like a Halloween themed display. And so that was something where I really like to work myself into these pieces. So I constructed a whole room to go in there. And I used my own, speaking of recitals, my own junior recital recording, made it all distorted as part of the background music, because I had music, I had a ghost in a projection, like a projector behind a fake mirror inside the dollhouse. That's something I recommend to everybody, especially when you graduate something as all-encompassing as music school, is find something that you can put yourself into, but that music school hasn't touched. For me, it's something tactile really helps. The last one that I made completely was a house for Teddy, for Emily's birthday.
Yeah.
That was fun. I'm cloning my condo because I cannot keep living here. I live on a 4-floor walk up, which is obviously not accessible to me anymore. I'm very sentimental and I don't like moving, and I need to take everything with me. So I am literally remaking my entire house in mini so that I can always have it with me. Just trying to do more, trying to realize what is out there. I love live music, but it's hard to go to concerts and things. It can be, one, expensive, but it's hard for me to spend energy in doing things and realizing like that it's worth it to crash for a few days afterwards to try and live life a little bit more. So I went and saw Ethel Cain earlier in the summer. Just a couple weeks ago, got back from a trip visiting my best friend I've known since we were 11, and her little baby, my honorary nephew, who is 1, and her husband, and that they're absolutely lovely, and realizing there are things that it's worth being exhausted for. It feels really good to reconnect with people. Lizzie and I met from choir, so we have this long history of knowing each other through music, and it was very rejuvenating to be like, my life is a lot slower and in some ways a lot sadder than it used to be. A lot of potential and the way that I thought my life would look at this age didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. We brought her baby boy, we brought him a little book on opera that has like a panel where you can press the buttons and it'll play sections from the Magic Flute, and it tells the story of the Magic Flute, and he loved it. It was such a hit. He really likes the finale of the Magic Flute, so he was just pressing that button over and over again and reminding me like, there's so much joy in what we do. It gets so stamped out of you, but this is a really exciting art form to be a part of, and that's what it's about. At one point, I was a bouncing baby who was captivated by this art form, and I can project that a little bit onto the children in my that I have access to. You've got to do a tiny bit of projection. You got to, try and pass something on. It might not be his love, but I hope that I can instill a little bit of reverence and respect for the classical arts.
Professors stamp out the two most important things that musicians need in music school, which is joy and confidence. Like,
Yeah.
we enter with joy and confidence and we exit with barely any if we're lucky.
True.
And it's funny because then you work the rest of your music career trying to find what was taken out of you. It is definitely rejuvenating seeing that in somebody else and remembering like, oh, it can exist and it should exist.
It should. Without that, what do we have?
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of just a number of things that I did like over the summer too was I was a part of the Opera Festival of Chicago, which is a Chicago opera. It was full of just very kind people, which was so nice to see with my experiences with people being really, really harsh and rude in music school. And just, gosh, that toxicity of that environment, like everybody at this place was so kind. I missed one day when I was sick, and as soon as I came back the next day, like everybody was checking in on me, being like, "Hey, like we missed you. Where were you? You okay?" And in music school, oh my God, no one cares, or you're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
So it was just like, and that's what you're told in music school too, is like we're treating you this awful way, not because we love the power dynamic, but they do love being on top of the power dynamic, but because this is what it's gonna be like when you're in the real world. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And yeah, there probably might be some ways, there are places that are like that. I don't know. But the worst is in music school. It was up in like northern Chicago, and we had like 3 performances and lots of like really, really long late night rehearsals, which was nice to be with like lots of people that were just super sweet and kind. And I was also asked to be the social media producer, which was nice because I got to post some content on my own channel, but then like run their Instagram page for the day. And it was just nice getting to like talk with other people that are passionate about social media like I am. So that's very fun.
No, you did a good job. It looked like a really fun gig to have.
And I played a wedding this summer for one of my old high school friends I hadn't talked to in a long time. She was getting married. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I thought of you right away for music." And so I talked to one of my friends too, and we made a little duet together. And it was actually a very fun experience. I played for weddings multiple times before, but this was probably the funnest and most interesting one, where we were outdoors and like everybody knew it was gonna rain, but I don't know if it was just the bride's high hopes that it wouldn't. And we like tried, and very quickly it was a downpour. And I got some of it on video, and then we like just put our instruments away in time and everything was moved indoors. And the wedding happened wonderfully indoors, and everything was great and super happy and lovely. The story one day to tell my own future students when they're like getting ready to, go forward and play for weddings and do stuff like that. I'll be like, hey, make sure my wedding performance contract has now been changed to say there must be some sort of, what's the word? It's in the contract, coverage, because there was no coverage. Luckily, we were rushed to a car, but our instruments were okay once we put them in their cases and stuff. But crazy, wonderful experience. I taught at a lot of different summer music camps, junior high, elementary, high school level string orchestra camps, which was really cool. I also took a class by Elizabeth Fadley on violin pedagogy, which, oh my gosh, she's just incredible. I've taken that class before, but she kind of like redoes stuff each year. So it's not the same content each year. You either get some of the same stuff and more, or it's completely different information. And I think she has it at a really great deal. I'm always like the early bird access, so I get like it priced off like right away because I know like what I'm getting is worth it. She's just incredible. So it really does help shape my private teaching, and also like my own skating class group teaching. It really just changes the way that I teach. I did a presentation for 2 of my final classes that I had to take this summer. It was one of my sociology classes on sexual harassment in conservatory. And that was just something I was so happy to be able to like take just a, gen ed class and make it something really meaningful. And so I posted that presentation and the research like on my YouTube, on my socials. It was just like a general education course. So kind of just like, you don't really have to do like the presentation part, just like create a presentation, but you don't have to actually present it. But I did the presentation part because this topic meant a lot to me and I wanted it to be out there. So I sent it to my teacher and I was like, hey, just want to let you know, this topic was very important to me. So I did go through and do this and just wanted to send it to you. And the teacher was like just wowed by it and very happy that I went further because even he knew it was a very important topic. So I'm very glad that I got to do something like that. And I was able to share it with so many other people and bring awareness specifically to how that can happen in conservatory, because it happens in the music world a lot, but conservatory can be a very dangerous place, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then originally I just realized I didn't have this written down here, but I also started coaching figure skating lessons, which has significantly impacted my life. I can't believe I forgot to write it in our podcast notes. Having that safe place, that hobby, like Claire said, that environment away from music is so important. And I used to be a figure skater for years, and I stopped when I got really focused on music. So getting back on the ice and something that was untouched by this trauma is so freeing. And also like the culture shock. I told some of the coaches there when I first went there, and everybody was just nice. And I'm like, wow, I'm not used to that. And I had a lunch with two of the coaches, and they're asking about stuff with like music and how that's like for me. And I'm like, when I first came to this rink, it was a pure culture shock by how nice everybody was there. And the coaches are so, so sweet. Like, I love working with them. One of them is a professional masseuse, and I got my very first massage actually a couple weeks ago, which was so important as a person with PTSD. And she's like very trauma informed. Highly, highly recommend it. But you build relationships like that with people, and that are like good people outside of the toxicity of music school culture. And that has really, really changed my life. It's changed my confidence, the way that I teach kids, and the way that I interact with people now. It's been extremely healing.
It's really nice that you have something that, is different, that was untouched, that, is your secondary interest, that you're still practicing your teaching skills. It's still relevant to what you studied, but one, I think having a physical sport, again, as a person with PTSD, getting back into your body physically, having your muscles being used and pushed, and remembering what you're capable of physically, to remember that like your body isn't just a memorial to the bad things that happened, or a thing that you have no control of, a thing that people want to take advantage of, or the government wants to control, or anything like that. It's something that is capable of doing something powerful and strong and amazing and beautiful. And I think, it's really touching to see your journey through figure skating and see how that's gone hand in hand with the sort of lessons that you've been trying to internalize from the last couple of years.
When I was talking to my therapist about creating my schedule for the semester that I'll eventually get into, we're trying to figure out how much can I handle, like what's too much as a person with PTSD, or is too much better for me, figuring all those things out. Coaching was like an automatic in. That's not a job to me, although it is. It's like my Saturday morning yoga class. Like that's what it is. That's what coaching is to me. It's nice I get paid. Of course, I'm working and I need money, but it's so much more than that at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't talk about my job on here, but since 2019, I've been working in an industry I never thought I would be in market research. When the pandemic happened, a lot of us got stuck doing things that we didn't think that we would be doing. I'm trying to claw my way out of that. As much as income is nice and as much as I'm capable of doing the job, it really is a little bit soul sucking to spend so much time away from what I'm trying to do, and to feel like you're just buying time chasing a career that isn't your career path. My husband started a dog training company. So obviously when he was first starting that, we were in a place where my stability of my job was kind of essential. But as things are taking off for him a little bit more, something that I've really wanted to do is I would love to look into founding my own opera company. I want to call it OOH, which stands for Opera of Our Own, but you have to say it like that. You have to go, ooh.
Actually, really creative. That's good.
Thank you. I really want to have like a company that is based on equity and really doesn't have one voice controlling everything, where somebody can use the resources that we have to organize a recital or a cabaret, like, hey, I would like to do this show. Who else is in? And you don't have to, if you're a member, you don't have to be in something every season. You can sign up for what you want to do. And as long as there are enough people who agree to be on board, then, everybody works together and everybody has a secondary job. So somebody wants to come in and as a performer, but they also would like directing experience. So they sign up to be a director for something for the next one. Someone signs up to also be in charge of social media. Somebody is in charge of costuming or in charge of makeup. So it's something that I realized is that the big companies are so old world, and we're breaking our necks paying for the privilege of performing the same 4 shows over and over again, and being told that we should be grateful for just having the opportunity, that there is power abuses and everything. And I was like, I don't know why we can't do it ourselves. Like, if we can raise money for venue rentals, why can't we just do it ourselves? And I would love for instrumentalists to have the same thing, where, like, you're not just there as an instrumentalist, you're also going to have a secondary job like everybody else, and everything is split equally. Nobody's getting, if there are profits, maybe there wouldn't be, nobody's getting more than anyone else, because everybody is having a share of work. Everybody is investing something in this for the shows that they're available to and would like to participate in. And if somebody wants to utilize it for, like, their own sort of programming or their own theme, their own show, that's something that I've had this idea for a while, and and we're talking baby steps, I've just started looking into how that sort of thing is structured, looking at domains and some grants that are available in the local Chicagoland area, whether it's best to structure this as a nonprofit or not, if this is something that I can do hand in hand with disability, which potentially I can. I don't want to be in charge, but I would like to be a founder. I don't want to be a CEO. And again, bringing it back to our episode with Robin Hahn, like, seeing that she has sort of done this with her opera Mariposa, I would really love to, sit down with the founders of them and kind of talk about, like, how did you structure this and how to be inclusive when running something. I would love to have a place that, one, is safe for women, safe for queer people, safe for people of color, that is celebratory of diversity and performing new works and taking new spins on old works and rare performed works, digging stuff up. I love seeing stuff that, like, might be old but, like, never gets performed. And why? You know that you have a voice. You know that you're not sitting there bowing down to one particular higher up, and that you can be accommodated. You don't have to be afraid if you're disabled, if you're sick, that everybody has their own particular set of skills. Everyone I know in the performance industry is good at more than one thing. Everyone had a secondary passion that could be applied, whether it's social media or, marketing, or whether it's on the financial aspect, the business aspect, or the costuming aspect, or the staging, or prop making. Like, there's so many musicians. We're a talented bunch. And I think I would love to take our power back, talking to people, to really see how this is structured, because I'm kind of serious about it. And I would really love to take our power back.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. Like, as you were talking about, like, the safety aspect, I'm just like, man, that's such a nice change that should be the way everything is, but it's not.
I'm taking everyone with me if I can. If you're in the area and you share these values, I would love to bring as many people on as possible, because we need this space. Let's skip the line, let's make our own opportunities. Let's invest in ourselves instead of paying money to higher ups who don't give a shit about us.
So a few months into the podcast, I announced publicly online that I was in the very early stages of writing a book. It's almost been a full year since I have started writing this book. I really did work. I was writing, like, from September all through May, constantly writing and editing. Like, it was like full-time job on the side that I was working on. And just to have, like, something on the side, a hobby like that, was so therapeutic to have another project to be working on. And over the summer, I did take a little bit of a break from it because I had been working on it for so long. But finally, I have just handed it over to an editor that I hired. So the process, it's a whole thing. There is no, like, one direct road and that you have every single stop point in order that you're supposed to take when you're writing a book. It is very different for everybody. So this process, that's why I announced it early. I want people, especially on my socials, to be able to follow what is it like to write a book and then to get it published. Because I remember like when I was first writing and then I was like, okay, wait, so getting this published, like, what do I do? And I literally like contacted authors, my old English teachers, and I was like, what do I do? Like, what's the steps to? How do you get it in book form and then out on the shelf? So I've been talking to a lot of different authors about things like that. Reading lots of books, or I'm just a big reader anyway, but reading lots of books like about similar to my topics and even just not similar to my topics, and taking books and seeing like how other people write their books and just, you know, small things. How is it usually done? So I do have a little highlight on my that Crazy Violin Girl Instagram page that is like highlighting the process. There's not much on there right now because, again, literally in the first few stages. The first draft exists. I've announced that I'm writing a book. And the only thing else, I think I did give the word count, but that's constantly changing. It's like 83,000 right now, but that's constantly changing. And I just said that it's for members of the classical music community and women. But I don't think that's true. I mean, it's for everybody, honestly.
Mhm.
But I guess the audience I'm targeting is everybody in the music industry. And then, yes, especially women, of course. But that's all I've said so far. I have not said the topic, the genre, the title, like anything in that area because we're so early on in it. Things are constantly changing. But she knows, and I know she knows. I did look through a few editors and I found one that really works well with my topic and is familiar with all that stuff and is a professional, degreed professional, which is very exciting. And we actually had our first meeting, was that like a week or two ago? The book is now in her hands. So we're working on that process, constantly communicating as she's editing, just for like clarity's sake and grammatical errors, all of those things. We discuss what exactly I need for her to do.
As somebody who knows a little bit about what's behind the scenes on this topic, and who has been privileged enough to watch you go on this journey, I learned so much about your work ethic watching you write this book because you've never done anything like this before.
That's the interesting thing, is that like I always knew I wanted to write a book. Like since I was little, I loved writing. And I always would say, like, I'm going to write a book someday. And it wasn't just like a little 5-year-old thing. Like I always said that. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. I just don't know what it's going to be about, but like I know I will eventually do it.
Yeah.
And so like, especially getting more serious in the music world, then I was like, okay, well, it's probably going to be something to do with music. Like it's going to be within the music world. And the topic kind of just, and its contents fell into my hands where I was like, okay, I see it. Like I know what I want to do. I can imagine it now. When you talk about work ethic, that was the thing I was going to bring up. My therapist was not impressed with my work ethic. She thought it was very unhealthy, but I would go like 6+ hours a day writing. Like I would get back from whatever class. And again, at the time I had very extreme like PTSD, but that was a distraction from any nightmares or triggers, was having this work and constantly working and typing and figuring things out. I would literally go 6 hours, more than that a lot of the times. No eating, no drinking, no using the bathroom. And I would just work. Like it was this adrenaline high and I was working on the book. Yeah,
might not have been what we're recommending the people do, just in case you're asking. Like, but
But it worked and it's there. And the first draft is there. So yeah, it was a process.
It really showed that that's what you were meant to be doing. Like somebody who has never written a book before, to have 300 pages, just sort of, it was shocking to me how fast you went, learning as you go really fast, and you apply things really well. You take advice really well, even though it's extremely personal to put something that you pour your heart into in someone else's hands and say, please criticize me. Although I guess music school does.
We do that all the time.
Well for that. But you know, most of us don't want to sign up for more of that. I got to see in real time how you study things and how you apply things. And it's been really fascinating and really touching to see what you're capable of. It's me mad that anyone would stifle it, but I'm proud of the way in which you have, you know, learned a new skill and really gotten to do something super exciting. And I can't wait to see more of it, see how it turns out.
Yeah, so right now I do plan on finding a publisher. That's the plan. Again, we're in the early stages. I do have like a list of publishers that I'm interested in. And I've kind of been just generally like in contact with like some people and other writers and editors and authors and all the things. But I'm also totally open to self-publishing if a publisher doesn't work out. So again, that is so up in the air in the future. But as I've hired an editor and any expenses that are not covered, because writing a book is expensive, it's where it's like, people say things like, oh, they're just writing a book like to get money. It's like, what money am I going to get from this? I'm spending money to get a book out there, to educate on this topic and to make this impact. So if there's any support you'd like to offer to my book, I do have a GoFundMe for it. And it is on my Instagram page right now, linked on my Instagram. We could put that in the bio. And another nice, exciting piece of news is that I am officially a godmother. I had a birthday party actually in May. I haven't had a birthday party in so long, but I decided to do one and to organize it and everything. And that is when one of my old high school best friends just casually like brought me up to my room. She's like, I need to talk to you. And she's like, you're going to be a godmother. And I was so, you know, like me, PTSD, throwing together like this party and seeing people I haven't seen in forever and like doing this thing. And I'm like, what do you mean? And then it like started to click. I'm like, the words made sense in my head and I just broke down sobbing. And so I've been in that really exciting, happy process of being a godmother, you know, baby shower stuff. Went to first ever ultrasound for myself being an ultrasound. It wasn't hers first one, but my first ultrasound, which was very nice to see like just my best friend go through this amazing, exciting process.
It's weird to get to that stage of life, right? Like you're like, I'm still a kid. And then like when your friends start having children and then everybody's getting married to like, it's so wonderful. I'm one of those people who I will never get sick of people posting about, I mean, keep your kids safe if you're posting your kids, but like anyone posting about their wedding planning, about their pregnancy, about like their kids, like I told everyone, like, I'm not the kind of person who doesn't want to see the pictures. Like, give me all the pictures, gush about it. I don't care if I'm not invited to a thing. I want to see every step of the process because it's beautiful. It's wonderful to see people making a life for themselves. And I've shared with Emily a lot that being an aunt or an unc, as I might be now, has been incredibly healing to look at the way that the people that I love are parenting, the decisions they make, the values they're instilling in their children, knowing that they're doing better for kids and seeing hope in the future. And just, it's really healing. I think when you're somebody with PTSD, it's very healing. It's truly been one of the most special things ever. And particularly when it's somebody that you've known for a long time. Obviously, my sister-in-law, I haven't known as long as I've known like my best friend. And it's wonderful to see my niece and nephew, but like also my best friend who, you know, had her first kid 1.5 years ago. It's crazy to see a child that looks just like her and having childhood memories of her and seeing his little mannerisms and the way that he acts. Like it is crazy to have memories of somebody that you've known since you were young and then see them make a person. As somebody who never wants to sign up for that experience in my own, I love seeing other people. I'm glad that I know and love people who make that choice for themselves because it's really magical to be a part of. And I think we need to remember that, like, that's what it's all about, right? Like, you know, nobody has to have children. Nobody, you know, the nuclear family is not necessarily a priority, but the next generation is our future and our hope. And those of us who have been in the world and have been hurt by it have a responsibility to try and make it brighter for the next generation. And when you get invited by somebody you love to take their hand and help them with that mission, that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. And then the very last thing I have to say is that I started student teaching. So this is the very last portion of my degree, as we talked about at the very beginning of the podcast. And I'm currently 20% done with my student teaching. Yes, I'm doing the percentage because I'm just so proud of myself for getting to this point. So for student teaching, it's different from what I've heard for different people. So I have 2 placements. I have a placement at a junior high school for string orchestra and at a high school for string orchestra. And I get observed by my university supervisor, who has been like hired for me 4 times total. And he's already observed me once. He's very kind, incredible. So I get to be observed 3 more times. But while I'm also like working this position, I have to be writing weekly reflections on what I'm learning and being told, weekly lesson plans. I have to attend a weekly seminar, which is just with my music education advisor and other students that are currently student teaching themselves. A lot of it is confidential. So I think the only things I really post on my Instagram about it are like selfies of me in my teaching clothes. But otherwise, like it is extremely confidential working in the school with minors. So that's not really talked about too much. But there's still like some stuff that I can say, you know, I'm working on like repertoire selection, different pedagogies, different teaching strategies, getting more comfortable on the podium, all the behind the scenes teacher work, using the copier administration stuff. The misconception that so many people have that told me that teachers have so many days off. And I was told, like, oh, you're not going to be that busy. Like, think about all those half days, right? Or President's Day
Right.
or whatever. Teachers don't get off President's Day.
No.
Teachers don't get off the half days. No, students do. Teachers are there and working and doing all the stuff, all the meetings, all the classroom stuff. Like, there's only 2 days off I get throughout this entire semester from August through December. And that was a Labor Day because that's a law that is actually enforced. And Thanksgiving are going to be the only days off that I actually get. So that's breaking that misconception, right? Because I kind of already knew that, but a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you guys get so many days off. Like, no, we don't.
No.
And then also, I mean, I'm basically working a full-time job, but you don't get paid for student teaching. So, and I do need to have some active like source of income. So I'm also like teaching lessons on the side, coaching on the side. So I would like to end by reading my schedule, my terrifying schedule of what it looks like, just so everybody like understands what it's kind of like.
It's a jump scare.
Yes. And I've been doing this for what now? Has it been 3 weeks?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, I've been doing it for 3 weeks, and as
Feels
far as
like
I know,
yesterday.
So, yeah. So, yeah, I teach on Sundays from 5 to 9, private lessons. Mondays, I'm in a school from 8 to 3, student teaching, and then I have an hour of private students and therapy that evening. Tuesday, I'm in a school from 7 to 2. And then I have 2 hours of private students. Wednesdays, I'm in a school from 8 to 3. And I coach skating group classes. And I have my seminar that evening. Thursdays, I'm in a school from 7 to 4:30. So that's going to be very long. And then I have students from 5:30 to 9:15. Yeah, I'm going to somehow survive that and end with a pulse as I do that. And then Fridays, I'm in school from 7 to 2. And then I coach skating classes in the evening. And Saturday mornings, I coach for 2 hours, 2 skating group classes. So in total, that's 52 hours a week of work. And that also includes the students that are biweekly, right? And students that have lessons once a month, because I do have a few private students that take lessons in that like sort of format. So there's that on top of it, right? We're recording this podcast episode during the schedule. So it's a lot. It is really a lot. But again, everybody deals with PTSD differently. And I think distraction is the healthiest thing. I don't think I'm entirely avoiding everything. I am in therapy and I'm working on my own issues. But there are times where I do have to not be thinking about it. And that is how this helps me, is having this kind of schedule. Do I also really have a choice right now to student teach without any income? Not really. So it's not like I'm like purposely doing that. There is a reason for everything, but that's what my student teaching schedule looks like right now. And so far I've survived 3 weeks with a pulse. So
yeah.
Nice.
Very congratulations to you, because you've really been handed a lot and you are handling it like a champ. I know our energy levels are not comparable, but my goodness, I do not envy your schedule.
When I was creating the schedule, I was very much aware this is only August through December. This is not my forever. I would not want this to be my forever either. I'm also at a point where it's not like I have a family and I need to be scheduling time like to, kids and like all that sort of thing. So yes, it is absolutely possible for me to work this schedule. This is not an everybody thing. The worst decision I made in this process was asking like other music teachers that I didn't even know for advice on the schedule, because almost every single one was like, no, that's way too much. Or you shouldn't even be working while you're student teaching. And we're not even taking into consideration that everybody's lives are different and everybody's circumstances are different. And people can't always afford to do so. Opinions mean absolutely nothing. I know myself better, my schedule better. And the only things that opinions do is help me realize how wrong another person is, or how right that the choice I already knew I was going to make is. So yeah, the schedule does work the best for me, and that's what I'm doing, and why we also did really pre-record a lot of season 2. We still do have one more guest episode that we're going to be filming before season starts coming out, but once you start seeing this episode, right, October 5th, everything has already been recorded and will be coming out, and we'll be posting stuff on the socials, but a lot of the work is already done, because by this point, October 5th, I'm probably dying right now in real time.
I think so.
Yes. All right, everyone, thank you for listening to our very first episode of season 2. We have lots more exciting topics and guests to come. I'm really excited about this season. I think it's definitely going to top our season 1. If you have any feedback, you can reach us at dissonantdialogues@gmail.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 872-216-9032 with any feedback. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, or if you have any topic ideas or questions, please reach out to us. A lot of our topics were requested by listeners and followers, and guests have reached out to us saying, hey, I really want to talk about this specific topic. So reach out to us and maybe you'll be on our season 3. You can also give us a follow on Instagram or TikTok at Dissonant Dialogues, and we will see you for our next episode.
Bye.
My microphone, just so I purposely bought it because it matches our color. I'm kidding. But we're gonna pretend like we did. Let me go get Teddy. Just a little run. There's numerous professors. You need to call them up and tell them that. We'll just send them this clip. No.
Nobody steal my name, okay? Now that I've told you, no one take it.
You know, I was thinking while you were talking, when we took the picture, you didn't have the mug in it, did you?
Oh, I should put the mug.
I feel like we should have the mug. I was just thinking that.
Right.
I was like, oh, that'd be really cool.
You want to do it again?
It should work. Yes, let's do it again. Okay. All right. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. What? Maybe we should take that out. That's a little dark.
I'm like, oh, did I leave the house once this week? Okay. I need 6 naps.
Good, because I need to like lay down on the floor.